Chapter 1. Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. So the adage went, according to a popular pre-system sci-fi show, and complicated certainly described my current circumstance. The frigid night wind that descended from the nearby Rocky Mountains tugged at my poncho and sent its edges lashing about as I zipped up the side of a Galactic building in one of suburban Denver's ritziest neighborhoods. The 12-story town's home rose sharply above the surrounding multi-million-dollar mansions, the tower's construction of alien metals and reinforced glass overshadowing the comparatively mundane estates in the middle of Highlands Ranch. Among the fancy homes of the formerly wealthy, the towering building was a bold statement on the way that the binary Eclipse sect lorded their power over the human inhabitants of the city. I intended to blunt the impact of their object lesson tonight. It had been several months since the binary Eclipse sect betrayed their diplomatic overtures with the 𝗲𝒿 clans. They had nearly disrupted the inaugural journey of the only secure transit route across the Midwest of the former United States, a rail line forged by the gnomes. The attempted hijacking of the train left a number of 𝗲𝒿 crew and their multi-species passengers dead. The sect hadn't been alone in the attack. It turned out there were 3 separate parties involved, and only the lack of any coordination between our foes allowed us to survive the assaults. The second group consisted of 𝗀𝒏𝒄𝒂𝒍𝒚𝒑𝒔𝒆, who hit the train in the final stretch back to Pittsburgh. The brutal aliens, known for their savage practices of devouring the young of other species, were hired and led by Diana's cousins to assist in returning the wayward countess to her family. The third and final group were the 𝒂𝒑𝒐𝒄𝒂𝒍𝒚𝒑𝒔𝒆, who played the largest role in assaulting the train through a series of raids. But the reptilian mercenaries had hurried to sue for peace with the 𝗲𝒿 in the aftermath of the incident. The kobold losses in the course of their offensive had been considerable, largely in part to the efforts of myself and my team, so the lizards were willing to pay a significant sum in order to placate the gnomes and avoid retribution. If there was anything that drove the 𝗲𝒿 trading clans, it was the language of credits. I wholeheartedly subscribed to that motivation, which is one of the reasons I'd accepted this current bounty assignment and now dangled stories above the carefully architected landscaping below. I wasn't one to leave credits on the table once they were offered, but truth be told, I'd have taken the job on the cheap. None of the gnomes on that train had deserved their untimely fates, but I'd considered at least a couple of those gnomes friends. Or at least as close as I got in this monster-infested world. I shook off the memories of Refn's bloody corpse on the floor of the train's workshop and the bodies lying across the aisles of the passenger cars, focusing back on the task at hand. Normally, the sconces that illuminated the sides of the building from ground level would have been shining up at me, but the low-tech solution of wedging a tightly packed tumbleweed over the uplight kept my ascent in darkness. The simplicity of the natural sabotage also avoided triggering any of the building's automatic repair or alarm functions that the system-enhanced structure boasted. The grappling system mounted to the forearm of my vambrace pulled me steadily upward to the overhanging balcony jutting out from the penthouse suite, the whining of the mechanism barely audible to my keen senses over the biting wind that swirled around the building. The perpetual chill that permeated the city was courtesy of the dragon which had taken up residence in the Rockies to the west. Not nearly far away for comfort, in my and the city residents' opinion. Not that the dragon was asking. The reel finished its ascent, and I hung by one arm just under the lip of the glossy flooring of the underside of the balcony. After a short listen for any sign that the terrace above was occupied, I reached with my free hand and gripped one of the balusters that lined the railing above. Once I had a firm hold, I detached the grapple's fastening before pulling myself over the balcony's edge in a rapid burst of motion. I landed lightly on my feet and slipped between several lounge chairs as I crossed to the wall beside the door that led into the penthouse suite. A palm-sized device materialized in my hand as I pulled the system tech from my inventory and placed it over the door's lock plate. The 𝑹𝒆𝒍𝒂𝒍𝒚𝒑𝒔𝒆 lock cracker was designed to open mechanical and magical doors, and the device announced its success with a dim green light blinking a moment later. The penthouse door slid open silently, and a wave of heat swept out from the darkened room beyond the gaping portal. The humidity flowing through the door carried a pungent amphibian scent that contrasted sharply with the crisp cleanliness of the Denver chill outside. I braced for the changed environment and ducked through the opening, leading the way with a pistol drawn from my shoulder harness and a knife to replace the lock cracker. Instead of the beam pistols I usually kept in the holsters of my shoulder rig, I'd substituted projectiles for this job. The dependable damage of energy rays and the rechargeable nature of their mana batteries was great for fighting monsters, but handcrafted rounds fired from enchanted semi-automatic handguns were a more reliable method of combating sentient aliens. The long cylinder affixed to the end of the pistol barrel would also silence any shot completely, something only Hollywood fiction could accomplish before the system's arrival on Earth nearly 2 years ago. Expensive upgrades, but worth it when my life was on the line. The balcony door closed behind me with a whisper, and I crouched in place, letting my eyes adjust to the dim space. The room I'd entered was the master bedroom, and the humidity was no surprise, given my target, especially since the majority of the chamber consisted of a pond rather than a traditional bedroom. Light from the open doorway on the far side of the room glinted from the ripples over the surface of the water, where large, lily pad-like alien plants bobbed. I momentarily dismissed my dagger to summon another device from my inventory, placing it on the floor just inside the doorway as I activated it. My target had already proven to have a teleportation or portal skill of some kind. He disappeared from the train months prior, so the device I'd just triggered would lock down dimensional movement abilities within the building's penthouse suite. Resummoning my knife, I stalked around the pool until I circled my way to the door leading further into the penthouse. My caution paid off when I caught the sound of conversation deeper in the apartment.
Of course we've scouted their forces, Manager 𝗻𝒔𝒐𝒄𝒂𝒍𝒚𝒑𝒔𝒆. The 𝑹𝒆𝒍𝒂𝒂𝒍𝒚𝒑𝒔𝒆 won't have the troops to hold their city cores against us once we've moved the bulk of our forces up from Colorado Springs. Except for those left maintaining the siege on the humans barricaded in the Air Force Academy, the rest of that element should be here within a week.
Then keep to the schedule. Once we hold Denver, we'll double back to overwhelm the human defenders with our full might. We need to solidify control of the region before the humans stir up more trouble like they are out west. Useless Zary. The damn humans are using funds from settlements along the coast to fund the Hakaar's elite 63rd Division and set practically the whole coast on fire. They even somehow managed to kill 2 of their master classers. I'd paid little mind when I'd heard rumors that a portion of the military still fought the good fight across the West Coast to free human settlements from Galactic control, with at least 3 different factions claiming to represent the true United States government. The effectiveness of any coordinated response would be limited. Still, if the conflict was gaining traction out on the coast, the news would be worth something. The fact that the Galactic groups were bringing in and losing master-class combatants would also be good information to pass along, on top of the fact that the sect were planning their own offensive against the 𝑹𝒆𝒍𝒂𝒍𝒚𝒑𝒔𝒆. Splurging on a few extra language packs from the shop was paying off. Though I didn't know much about the manager, the first voice was one I'd recognized, and I confirmed the presence of my target with a gentle probe from greater observation. Jeremiah Anura, Sect Assistant to the Regional Manager, Level 41. Basic. Binary Eclipse Sect. HP 410 out of 410. MP 650 out of 650. Status none. My upgrades to the class skill, courtesy of a shop-purchased skill point, now showed the class tier of my target and any status effects along with any system-registered affiliation. The improved ability didn't detect anyone or anything else in the room beyond, which meant that the second voice came from a communicator of some kind. If only my other recently purchased points had increased their respective ability as usefully. 70 and 80,000 credits each for 2 points in On the Hunt, and the ability that allow me to disguise various portions of my status still couldn't hide that damned Knight Errant of 𝗬𝒔𝒕𝒍𝒚𝒑𝒔𝒆 title.
The humans are advancing fast enough to face master-class combatants?
Jeremiah asked, fear and uncertainty tinging the alien's voice. They sacrificed some of their highest-level troops, and even a few 𝗀𝒐𝒂𝒍𝒚𝒑𝒔𝒆 mercenaries in exchange. I'm not overly concerned with a bunch of primitive natives 400 leagues away. Just take the fray cores, like I've instructed.
I'll take care of it, boss,
Jeremiah said. See that you do. I'll be there soon. An electronic snap, like an old TV turning off, followed the response, and Jeremiah sighed.
Micromanaging 𝗧𝒑𝒐𝒂𝒍𝒚𝒑𝒔𝒆. I bet he's already on his way here.
Though I didn't have a clue what a 𝗧𝒑𝒏𝒕𝒍𝒂𝒂𝒍𝒏 was, the tone indicated it was nothing positive. The audible disparagement of his superior also marked that the communication had ended, and it was time for me to finish this bounty. Swapping my knife for another silenced pistol, I stepped through the open door and into the room with both weapons pointed at my target. Knowing Jeremiah's location within the room from my skills made the ambush almost trivially easy. The humanoid bullfrog stood with his back to me, and I triggered a flurry of shots before the alien noticed my presence. The first handful of rounds splashed against a rippling shield that sprung into existence between us, and Jeremiah jumped in surprise at the shimmering blue bubble that had appeared to protect him. By the time Jeremiah turned, the projectiles from my shots were already digging deep into the emergency shield. On top of the bonuses bestowed by the handcrafted nature of the rounds, my own class skill, Expose, stacked increasing damage with each subsequent attack on defenses. The wide-eyed sect administrator flinched when he saw me attacking from the doorway and squeezed his eyes closed, presumably to activate the escape skill. The alien flinched and opened his eyes in shock when the skill failed to activate. I knew the device I'd planted wouldn't last long against repeated attempts, so I needed to wrap this up quickly. The emergency shield flared out, failing as suddenly as it had appeared. My following shots bored into the center of the flat forehead between the alien's wide-set eyes before punching into his brain as my first pistol ran dry. I launched myself forward and swapped the emptied pistol for my knife once again as I ran my second pistol empty. Jeremiah dropped like a pithed frog, and I pulled up short only a step away from following up with a melee strike, a flurry of notifications announcing my kill with a rush of experience. Bounty completed. You have successfully eliminated the subject of an assassination bounty. This bounty request does not require the return of the subject as proof of death. 10,000 credits and 10,000 XP awarded. Title Advancement. You have successfully cleared enough bounties to be promoted to the bronze rank within the Galactic Bounty Hunter Guild. You are now eligible to pursue bounties at the bronze tier and below. Title updated to Galactic Bronze Bounty Hunter. 1,000 credits and 5,000 XP awarded. Level up. You have reached level 45 as a Relentless Huntsman. Stat points automatically distributed. You have 2 free attributes and 11 class skill points to distribute. In this case, the high payouts were due to the target's connections and not the difficulty of the elimination. The payout for advancing my bounty hunter tier came as a surprise, given that I'd had to pay credits to acquire the initial certification. I wasn't going to complain, not when it pushed me over the edge of my next level. Less than a level left now separating me from the final tier of class skills that unlocked at 46. Then onward to grinding out the final stretch to Master Class. You better be close to finishing, Hal. Sect elites have arrived, and they appear to be escorting a VIP. Diana's voice over the party chat provided by her diplomatic contact's class skill spurred me back into action. No doubt Sect Regional Manager 𝗻𝒔𝒐𝒄𝒂𝒍𝒚𝒑𝒔𝒆 had shown up early, just as the late 𝗀𝒔𝒐𝒂𝒍𝒚𝒑𝒔𝒆 suspected. Target eliminated. Proceeding with extraction, I replied, as I hurried to loot what little I could from the alien. Then I withdrew 2 S-shaped meat hooks from my inventory and stabbed them into the dead alien's back. Hooking the bottom of each blade under one of the amphibian's shoulder blades, I pulled the body behind me. A trail of blood and other fluids streaked the floor beneath the corpse the entire way through both rooms as I retraced my footsteps back out to the balcony. But I wasn't worried about covering my tracks. The entire point of this job was to send a message, and the sect would soon have bigger problems than me. I paused long enough at the door to scoop the dimensional lockdown device back into my inventory before hauling the dead alien outside. With a grunt, I hefted the dead alien up onto the railing and set the hooks in place as I slid him over the side to hang, completely visible from the ground below if anyone looked up. The sudden jerk as the body came to rest caused the alien's mouth to fall open and its lengthy tongue unfurled out of its wide mouth. I took a moment to nod in satisfaction at the display before climbing up to stand on the railing next to the carcass. Then I launched myself outward and away as I jumped off the ledge.